So you're thinking of moving to Austin, Texas, and naturally you've probably heard some great things about it, and you've probably heard some not so great things about it, especially as the city evolves and as we approach 2022. So in this video, what I'm gonna do is just go over the good and the bad and answer some questions we get asked quite frequently, and hopefully by the end help you arrive at your own conclusion. If that's the reason you clicked on this video, stay tuned because we're getting after it right now. Hey everybody, welcome back. Or if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Frank and I'm part of a team of agents at the award-winning J.B. Goodwin Brokerage located right here in the fabulous Austin, Texas. Each and every week we put out tons of new content all in regards to living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad, such as this video. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and ringing that little bell so that you're notified each and every time we put out a new video. We love the reach outs we've been getting from you guys, what feels like every day now as this channel continues to grow, or if you're new, people just like you in need of our help when relocating to this great city of Austin, Texas. We love learning about your lifestyle and placing you in that perfect spot, making your move as smooth as possible. But the only way we can do that is by you reaching out to us. So do not hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, go ahead and shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. We've got your back when moving to the fabulous Austin, Texas. So let's get right to it. I'm not sure when you're watching this video. At the time of recording it, we're just into November of 2021 with 2022 right around the corner. So you might be watching this in 2022 or you might be stumbling upon it sometime in the distant future. But regardless of when you're watching this, yes, Austin is rapidly evolving and changing with all the people moving here with COVID. And so naturally you're probably wondering, is it still a good idea? Is it maybe not so much of a good idea these days? Austin maybe 5 or 10 years ago in many ways could have been more appealing than it is now. So that's really what we're going to get into, give you an idea of what to expect, what's changing, what's still good, what's perhaps getting worse, what can you expect when you're making such a big decision in your life to relocate, especially if you're coming from out of state. You want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row and that you're not potentially blindsided by anything. So without further ado, let's just get right into it and talk about what it's like to live in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad. Starting off, a question we get asked a lot is, of course, about the market. Are we in a bubble? Is the market going to crash? Do we even have a chance of buying a house right now? And to be totally frank with you, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 12 months ago, the current state of the market, yeah, it was pretty bad, especially as people who specialize in helping buyers. You had perfectly modest homes, nothing too crazy or appealing, still in bidding wars, still going well over asking price, 10, 20, sometimes $50,000 over asking, waiving the rights to this, waiving that just to get in. And that's the thing we used to have to tell a lot of our clients is that, look, right now it's not about getting a deal, it's not about getting something super budget friendly. Right now it's just about getting in if you're wanting to buy a house. So when we get asked the question about the market, I can't blame them. It's been pretty hectic. But what I can say is that now, at least at the time of the making of this video, as I mentioned, November 2021, we have seen it slow down. Don't get me wrong, it's still pretty hot, but it's not going to burn your finger when you touch it kind of hot. It's cooled off. So I would say it's a warm market. But the thing about Austin is, and I can't BS you because I like to keep it brutally honest on this channel, is that Austin has been and will continue to be a relocation hotspot, not just in Texas, but in the entire country. With Facebook here, Google here, Tesla's here, Apple's here, IBM is here, Dell is here, all of these tech giant companies migrating from Silicon Valley, creating Silicon Hills. So it's not like the demand is going away anytime soon. But the craziness of the market is what we are observing to be cooling down, at least for people to get a breath of fresh air, people to just, calm down. And so now, yes, are there bidding situations? Of course, but it's going to be the houses with the pools. It's going to be the houses that are underpriced, the really sought after types of homes that are hard to find. In addition to that, we also like showing our clients some new build homes as well to really keep their options open, because especially my business partner, Caleb, who really specializes in the new build communities out there, a lot of them are no bidding situations. It's first come, first serve. So that really takes a lot of the pressure off of the shoulders of the buyers who are a little bit nervous about getting into these competitive negotiation situations. And granted, not everyone is in the market for a new build home. A lot of the clients we help prefer something just a few years old, maybe 5, maybe 10 years old, or maybe they don't care at all and they want something maybe from the 70s or 80s that's been remodeled. But if new build homes are what you might be looking for, it's just good to know that there are options out there, especially in different parts of the greater Austin area. Which naturally leads me to something else about Austin, Texas that is evolving, and it is those greater Austin areas, those suburbs, if you will, those towns that are surrounding the city. If you're doing your homework online and you use a website, for example, like niche.com, and it ranks the top 10 suburbs, the top 20 suburbs, you're gonna get a lot of the Westlake Hills, you're gonna get a lot of Lakeway, you're gonna get a lot of these places that are close to the city that have median home prices of $700,000-$800,000, well over $1 million, which is why we as a channel like to shed the light on the areas that for the longest time weren't getting much attention. Now, of course, they're getting more attention because people are looking everywhere they can, but the Leanders of the world, the Georgetowns of the world, and now up and coming places like Manor, like Hutto. Places like these are really where you're going to see that bang for your buck that you hear about in regards to Austin, Texas. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, Austin is the most expensive city in the state of Texas by far. So if you're counting your pennies, San Antonio, Dallas, or Houston are all going to be more affordable options. But here's the thing, you look at the median home price in Austin, Texas, and it's going to be just over $600,000, which once upon a time, just a few years back, was $450,000, so it's really appreciating in that way. But when you take a closer look, and you examine the places I just mentioned, the Leanders, the Georgetowns, the Budas, the Bastrops, the Huttos, the Manors, that's where you're going to find that you could really stretch the money more. That's where it's going to be more competitive with a Houston or with a Dallas. So it's not all bad. These are the places where you can trade your $400,000 townhome in Oregon for perhaps a nice house with a theater room, or maybe with a pool, or maybe near a golf course, or maybe near the best schools for your kids. You just need to know where to look. And it is true, Austin, Texas is getting more and more and more expensive. But those numbers, the averages, the medians, can at times be quite deceiving. And so in your shoes as the buyer, it's very easy to be overwhelmed when you're looking at Austin, which in comparison to Dallas and Houston is a small city, but its surrounding area, its greater area is deceivingly large. So all of a sudden, you're bombarded with all of these different towns and suburbs and you don't know what to choose. And another thing about Texas is that it's such a large state that when you look at the map, it might seem like this town is really close to this town, but in reality, it could easily be a 20, 30, 40-minute drive, closer to an hour even sometimes. And that's when we come in. That's what we like to do with our clients, is really break it down for them and find out which area is best for you. Now, moving on to something else we get asked about a lot, and that would be the subject of flooding, storms, the weather, and tornadoes, things of that nature, natural disasters, what to look out for, and what to be worried about. And truth of the matter, not to sugarcoat things, because I do pride myself in the honesty, but Austin, though, doesn't get the floods. Austin doesn't get the hurricanes. That's going to be something you experience more frequently in a city like Houston, which is closer to the water, filled with humidity. And then if you go north towards Dallas, that's when you're going to have the strong winds, sometimes some tornadoes, that kind of Oklahoma type of climate. So in Austin, what's cool about it, what it can, I guess, hang its hat on is that you're in the center of this gigantic rock, this gigantic state of Texas, where you're not too close to this, you're not too close to that, you're just right there. So we really don't experience anything like that. I mean, the worst we had recently was the snowstorm, which was early in 2021. It was the first snowstorm of its kind since, I believe, 1969, 1967. So a good 60 years. And that is when we experienced power outages and we lost water, and I had to pour a bucket of boiled snow that had cooled off over my head in the sink to shampoo myself and charge my phone in my car. And we had just started this channel. I didn't know how the heck to shoot videos. But other than that, every 60 years, nada. It's really a non-issue here. I remember, for example, when hurricanes were hitting Houston and I was getting blown up on my phone from people who were asking me, hey, are you okay? People from outside of Texas, are you safe? What's going on? And it was almost news to me. Like, I'd heard they were getting bad weather, but here in Austin, you know, something so dramatic like that could simply be a few days of rain that we desperately need from the summer heat. It's not all perfect though. We still get our mosquitoes, even though we're not as humid. We still get our ants, we still get our wasps, our bees, our hornets, our spiders. And yes, our summers are absolutely brutal. It's something I've talked about a lot on this channel. You know, between perhaps the end of May through the end of September, you're going to see for sure 90s and oftentimes consecutive triple digits. Now, this past summer in 2021, we only saw triple digits a handful of times throughout the whole summer. The year before that, we had consecutive months of triple digit weather. So what you can bet on if you're a betting man is it's going to be hot, you know, but the triple digits, that can be a little bit more sporadic. But as you can see, I am wearing a long sleeve shirt and it is now November. So we just recently got our very first cool front that is going to take us into autumn and eventually winter. Not long before the making of this video, throughout October, we still saw temperatures of 89, 87, 85. So it does take a while to cool off, but eventually, inevitably, it does. Now here's the thing, we might not get the flooding, we might not get the natural disasters, we might be safe in the center of the big rock. But something that Austin is experiencing now, and this is very current, is a rapid increase in crime. And I'm not just talking about a minor statistical influx or increase of crime that is a little bit higher than it was. No, we are seeing a dramatic increase in robberies, in aggravated assaults, in murders. Hell, just in the past 6 to 9 months alone, we've had 2 shootings on 6th Street downtown. And now on YouTube, ironically, I'm seeing local ads from our local politicians saying, you know, I'm a proud Democrat, but we need to continue funding the police. You know, it's getting messy, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it. People are trying to find reasons as to why it's happening, and it's honestly not for me to say. If I don't have all the answers, I prefer not to preach my opinion. That's just kind of how I am, but it is fact of the matter getting worse, the crime. And obviously, yes, in the suburbs and the surrounding towns, it's going to be safer. I really am talking more specifically about central Austin, about the city of Austin, but it's something worth mentioning. I'm not trying to dissuade or deter you, but I keep it real, and that's just something you've got to expect. Another thing in addition to that, you know, again, we don't have the floods, we don't have the natural disasters, all that stuff, but now we're seeing an increase in tents everywhere where they didn't used to be. The homeless crisis, if you want to call it that, in Austin is also a conversation among locals, and it is something, along with crime, that is rapidly increasing. I've seen tents very north of central Austin, and you know, because I choose to reside outside of the city. I like to dabble if I want to go, but I don't like being stuck there. And even where I live, where there were never tents, now there are tents under underpasses and things like that. So it can be concerning, it can be a bit of an eyesore, and I just want to run that by you. You know, Austin is far from perfect, and at this current point in time, it's looking like those types of issues are going to get worse. Another thing I'll briefly touch on is the subject of COVID, and I realize now it's been politicized. I realize now talking about it can be controversial, so I am going to tread lightly. I'm not going to get into that aspect of it, but our treatment of COVID, that's really what I'm wanting to address, because we're all different. We all have our different opinions. We all have our different stances, if you will. And what I want to say about COVID is just the way we treat it, the way it is here, because we get calls from people from California, we get calls from people from New York City, and depending on who you are, you might like the way it's being handled in some places and you might not. So in certain states, you know, vaccine passports are a big thing. Here in Texas and Austin, not the case. Proof of vaccination to get into restaurants, to get into stores, to get into venues are happening in other states. That's not the case here. Mask mandates to go grocery shopping, to do this, to do that, are mandated in other states, and they're not here. So Texas, being traditionally a red state, is very much of the mindset, just don't take my freedom, don't tell me what to do. They like to preserve the choice. You know, if you want to wear your mask, you may. If you want to get vaccinated, you may. And I'm not saying if that's right or if that's wrong, that's simply how it is here. So you might be someone hearing me say that, saying, oh my God, that scares me. I would rather not live in a place that might seem so careless, or it might seem selfish. That might be your frame of mind, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or I might be speaking to people who think it's getting scary where I live, it's getting controlling where I live. I feel like my freedoms are being taken from me, something of that nature. And in a state like Texas, it might be a breath of fresh air for you to have the option, to have the freedom. So I just wanted to run that by you. It's not that Texas doesn't take it seriously, it just has its own way of approaching it. And it still takes it seriously. You still see lots of people with masks, lots of people get vaccinated. And so I'm not saying what's right or wrong, but I just want to give you that heads up, especially if you're coming from out of state. You know, we specialize in helping people relocate. Just something to keep in mind. You know, I felt that was something you might want to know, especially as we are coming out of the lockdowns and the height of the pandemic, as we get into 2022 and different states are doing different things and travel is changing. So in the case of Austin, or I suppose more so in the case of Texas, that is what you can expect, for better or for worse. Now, before moving on, let us know what you're nervous about, what you're excited about, what questions you may have about Austin, Texas. Drop them all down below in the comments for us to get involved with. In addition to that, if we've been providing any value for you, we ask that you consider liking the video as well, as it really helps our channel grow and tells us that we're doing a good job. Remember to subscribe, and if there's anyone in your life who you know is wanting to learn more about Austin, Texas, go ahead and share our content with them and spread the good word. Lastly, what I'll talk about in regards to Austin's evolution as we approach 2022 is the subject of its culture. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was much more of a Texan culture, of a Southern culture. And don't get me wrong, you still have those elements, but as we're seeing relocation absolutely explode in Austin, Texas, naturally you're seeing a lot of transplants, people who are not originally from here. You meet 5 people in Austin, Texas, you ask them where they're from, 3 of them might say they're from out of state, 2 of them might say they're from here, you know, so on and so forth. So what does that mean? You know, if you're wanting to move to Austin, Texas, you'll probably have a number of reasons. Most of them are usually lack of state income tax, great schools, affordability, at least in comparison to other states. But one of those big reasons is the Southern culture. And while that is strong in Texas, you know, hospitality, kind drivers, warm people, friendly people, barbecue cookouts, all of the great things that make the South, while it exists in Austin, it's going to be a little bit different than Houston or Dallas. Austin might not have the same sense of community, of togetherness as these other places, with a lot of people being from out of state. And so what we have been seeing over the past few years, especially now and into the next few years, is that Austin has a culture of its own. Oftentimes I've heard that Austin is called the California of Texas. Now, while you shouldn't take that literally, and while you should take it with a grain of salt, there is some truth there. Obviously, it's not going to be like in LA or San Francisco, but it's going to be more like that than Dallas or Houston or San Antonio. Those places are more authentic, those places are more united, and those places maintain more of that Southern feel I'm talking about. But don't get me wrong, Austin's culture is not bad. It's not an unlikable culture. It's really cool. It's very progressive, it's very artistic, it's very eclectic. There's a lot of tech. As I mentioned, you've got Tesla building a factory, Samsung's building a factory. So you're going to see a different brand of people, but different doesn't mean bad. It just kind of depends on who you are and how it resonates with you. You're going to see a lot more of the arts with music venues or comedy theaters. You're going to see avocado on toast. You're going to see crystal shops, yoga studios, hiking. But yes, if you're looking for that cliche brand of Southern hospitality that is not just a stereotype, I promise you it does exist, you're going to find it more easily outside of the city. So when you go to Manor, when you go to Round Rock, when you go to Cedar Park, when you go to Liberty Hill, to Georgetown, all of these places, all of a sudden it's going to feel less Austin-y and going to feel more Texan. And that can be a great thing depending on who you are, or that can be a not so great thing. It just, as I mentioned, depends on your own walk of life and who you are. So I felt it worth mentioning because maybe you're wanting to escape New York and really culture shock yourself in a great way with Austin, and it might fall flat on its face. It might disappoint you. Or maybe you're a younger couple, or maybe you're coming from California, or maybe you want something that is still Texan in its own way, still Southern in its own way, but is a hybrid of progressive, of contemporary, of modern, of cool, of trendy. So it just depends on your flavor. So at the end of the day, Austin, Texas is a great place to live. But yeah, you can't deny it is getting much more expensive. It is getting less and less safe. The culture might not be what you want of it. The treatment of COVID might not be what you want of it. We might not get the floods or humidity, but damn it, it gets hot here. The market is still hot, but perhaps not as hot as you think. So you take the good with the bad. You could say it's perfectly imperfect or imperfectly perfect. It really depends on what you're looking for and which part of the greater Austin area is best for you. Maybe you want something with size, maybe you want something near the water, maybe you want something more suited for young professionals, maybe you want to be closer to the best schools. Whatever it is, again, that is what we are here for. We love learning about your lifestyle and placing you in that perfect spot to make your move as smooth as possible when you're relocating here. And while it is exciting to relocate, it can be a very stressful ordeal, a very expensive ordeal, a very intimidating ordeal. So the only way we can help you is by you reaching out to us. So do not hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, go ahead and shoot us that text, send us that email, give us that call. Any day of the week, any time of day, let us help you move to Austin, Texas. So hopefully we've been able to help you arrive at your own conclusion and give you a better idea of what you can expect when living in Austin, Texas. And again, we put out tons of new content each and every week, all in regards to living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and ringing that little bell so that you're notified each and every time we put out a new video. Comment down below with any questions you have about Austin, or maybe opinions you have, worries you have, things you're excited about. Let us hear about it and let us get involved. Consider liking the video as it helps our channel grow. Share it with anyone you know. And until the next one, you guys, my name is Frank. This is Living in Austin, Texas, and we will absolutely catch you later.